Have you ever watched a story that slowly pulls you in, and before you even realize it, you're completely lost inside its world? Oppenheimer is one of those films that doesn't just entertain, it makes you feel every moment. From the very beginning, the movie builds a sense of mystery and tension, where every scene carries meaning and every character hides something deeper beneath the surface. As the story unfolds, you start to see how small decisions lead to unexpected consequences. The film takes you through intense moments, emotional turns, and powerful scenes that keep you hooked till the very end. It's not just about what happens, it's about why it happens and how it changes everything. The characters in this film are not simple. Each one has a purpose, a backstory, and a role that connects to the bigger picture. Their performances bring life to the story, making every scene feel real and impactful. But what truly makes Oppenheimer stand out is the way it was created, the vision behind the story, the effort put into its production, and the ideas that inspired it. Every detail, from storytelling to execution, adds something unique to the overall experience. In this video, we're going to break down the complete story, explore the characters, and analyze everything from its creation to its success. And just to be clear, this is not a full movie or a movie screening. It's a detailed review and analysis made for learning and entertainment purposes. So let's begin and take a closer look at Oppenheimer. There are films that tell a story, and then there are films that feel like a slow burning pressure building inside your chest. Oppenheimer belongs to the second kind. It does not rush to impress you. It pulls you in quietly, then tightens its grip until you realize you are watching the birth of something powerful and deeply unsettling. This is not just a historical drama. It is a psychological descent into the mind of a man who helped change the direction of the entire world. What you are about to hear is a full review and breakdown, not the movie itself, built to explore the emotion, the tension, and the meaning behind each moment without replacing the experience of watching it. Christopher Nolan directs with a kind of control that feels almost surgical. Every scene carries weight. Every line feels like it matters. Cillian Murphy steps into the role of Robert Oppenheimer with a presence that feels fragile and intense at the same time. Around him, a cast filled with strong performers creates a world that feels grounded, yet constantly on edge. The tone stays serious from the start, but not heavy in a dull way. It feels sharp, focused, and quietly dangerous. The story does not open with explosions or spectacle. Instead, it begins inside the mind of a man who cannot stop thinking. The early moments introduce Oppenheimer not as a hero, but as a restless student. His world feels abstract, almost disconnected from reality. He sits alone, staring at equations and ideas that seem to consume him. There is a sense that his thoughts move faster than everything around him. This is where the film begins to shape its identity. It is not interested in simple storytelling. It wants you to feel what it is like to live inside a mind that never slows down. That internal tension becomes the foundation for everything that follows. As he moves through his academic life, the environment around him feels cold and distant. Classrooms are not lively places of learning. They feel rigid and controlled. Oppenheimer does not fit easily into that structure. He struggles to connect with others in a normal way. Conversations feel slightly off, as if he is always thinking about something else while speaking. This creates an early sense of isolation. Even when surrounded by people, he feels alone. That loneliness becomes one of the key emotional threads that the film keeps returning to. There is a quiet shift when he begins to find his place in theoretical physics. For the first time, there is a sense of belonging. Not socially, but intellectually. He connects with ideas more than people. The film leans into this by focusing on his expressions rather than long explanations. His eyes carry curiosity, but also something deeper. There is ambition, but it does not feel loud or arrogant. It feels internal, almost hidden. This makes his character more complex than a typical genius portrayal. As his career develops, the tone begins to tighten. The world outside academia slowly starts to creep in. Political tension is present, but it is not pushed aggressively. It exists in the background, like a distant storm that is slowly getting closer. Oppenheimer's interactions start to reflect this change. He becomes more aware of the world beyond equations. His decisions begin to carry more weight. The film does not rush this transition. It lets it build gradually, making each step feel natural and believable. One of the most interesting aspects at this stage is how the film handles relationships. They are not presented as simple emotional support systems. Instead, they feel complicated and sometimes unstable. His connection with Jean Tatlock introduces a different side of him. There is intensity, but also discomfort. Their conversations carry a mix of attraction and tension. It never feels easy or relaxed. This adds another layer to his character, showing that his personal life is just as complex as his intellectual one. The pacing remains controlled, but there is a clear sense that something bigger is coming. Small details begin to matter more. Conversations about global conflict become more direct. The idea of war is no longer distant. It starts to feel inevitable. Oppenheimer's role in this shifting world becomes more defined, even if he does not fully realize it yet. The film uses silence effectively here. Moments without dialogue often say more than words could. As the narrative continues, there is a growing contrast between his internal world and the external reality. Inside his mind, everything feels limitless. Outside, the world is moving toward conflict and destruction. This contrast creates tension without needing dramatic action. It is a psychological pressure that builds slowly. You start to feel that his intellect, which once seemed like a gift, might also become a burden. That idea sits quietly beneath the surface, waiting to be explored further. Another strong element in this section is the way authority figures are introduced. They do not come in as obvious antagonists. Instead, they feel measured and calculating. Their interest in Oppenheimer is not emotional. It is strategic. This changes the dynamic of the story. It is no longer just about personal growth. It becomes about usefulness. What can he offer? How can his mind be used? These questions begin to shape the direction of the narrative. The film also pays attention to atmosphere in a very controlled way. Locations are not just backgrounds. They reflect the emotional tone of each moment. Rooms feel tight when tension rises. Open spaces feel isolating rather than freeing. Lighting stays subtle but effective. Nothing feels exaggerated. This grounded approach makes the story feel more real. It keeps you focused on the characters rather than distracting you with visual excess. As Oppenheimer's reputation grows, there is a noticeable shift in how others perceive him. He is no longer just a student or a thinker. He becomes someone people pay attention to. This attention brings opportunity, but also pressure. Expectations begin to form around him. The film shows this without making it dramatic. It feels natural, almost quiet. But underneath that calm surface, the stakes are rising. The foundation is fully set. You understand who Oppenheimer is, but more importantly, you understand how he thinks and feels. The story has not rushed into major events yet. Instead, it has carefully built the emotional and psychological base needed for what is coming next. There is a strong sense that everything so far has been preparation. The real test has not started yet, but it is getting closer with every moment. The shift does not arrive with noise. It begins quietly, almost like a subtle change in air pressure. Oppenheimer's world, once centered around ideas and theory, starts to bend towards something more concrete, something heavier. The conversations around him begin to carry urgency. War is no longer a distant concept discussed in academic circles. It is real, expanding, and pulling people into its gravity. This change does not immediately transform him, but it starts to reshape the direction of his thinking in ways that feel both natural and unsettling. There is a growing sense that his intellect is being noticed by the right, or perhaps the wrong people. Figures connected to the military and government begin to appear more frequently. Their presence feels controlled, deliberate. They do not waste words. They observe, they evaluate, and they decide. When they engage with Oppenheimer, it feels less like a conversation and more like a quiet assessment. He is not being asked who he is. He is being measured for what he can become. This dynamic adds a layer of tension that does not need raised voices to feel intense. Oppenheimer himself does not appear eager in a traditional sense. There is no moment where he openly declares ambition for power or influence. Instead, there is curiosity, a pull toward the unknown. The possibility of working on something that pushes the limits of science draws him in. At the same time, there is hesitation, a subtle awareness that stepping into this world might change him in ways he cannot predict. The film captures this inner conflict through small expressions, brief pauses, and moments of silence that linger longer than expected. As the narrative deepens, the focus shifts toward the idea of responsibility, not in a direct or obvious way, but as an underlying theme that starts to grow stronger. Oppenheimer begins to understand that his work is no longer just about discovery. It has consequences, real-world consequences that extend far beyond laboratories and classrooms. This realization does not hit him all at once. It builds gradually, layer by layer, making it feel more authentic and more unsettling. His relationship with Kitty enters with a different kind of energy compared to what came before. Where Jean brought intensity and unpredictability, Kitty introduces a more grounded presence, but not a simple one. She carries her own complexity, her own strength. Their interactions feel direct, sometimes sharp, but never empty. There is a sense that both of them understand the weight of the world they are living in, even if they approach it differently. This relationship does not soften Oppenheimer. If anything, it adds another layer to his internal conflict. The pacing during this section becomes more deliberate. Scenes take their time, allowing tension to build in subtle ways. Conversations stretch just long enough to feel uncomfortable. Silences become more meaningful. You begin to notice how often important things are left unsaid. This technique keeps the viewer engaged, not through action, but through anticipation. You start to feel that something significant is forming, even if it has not yet fully revealed itself. The introduction of General Leslie Groves marks a turning point in tone. His presence feels solid, practical, and focused. Unlike the abstract world Oppenheimer comes from, Groves represents action and decision. When the two interact, there is an immediate contrast. One operates through thought and theory, the other through strategy and execution. Surprisingly, this contrast does not create conflict right away. Instead, it forms a kind of balance. Groves sees potential in Oppenheimer, but it is not based on admiration. It is based on necessity. Their early interactions carry an interesting energy. Groves does not treat Oppenheimer like a traditional academic. He challenges him, tests him, and at times pushes him into uncomfortable territory. Oppenheimer, rather than resisting, seems to respond with a mix of confidence and curiosity. There is a quiet understanding forming between them, not built on friendship, but on mutual recognition of what needs to be done. This relationship becomes one of the central forces driving the story forward. As discussions about the project begin to take shape, the scale of what is being considered starts to emerge. It is not presented with grand speeches or dramatic declarations. Instead, it unfolds through detailed conversations, strategic planning, and careful consideration. This approach makes the idea feel more real and more serious. It is not just a concept. It is a plan. And plans, unlike ideas, have consequences. Oppenheimer's internal state becomes more complex during this phase. There are moments where he appears fully engaged, almost energized by the challenge ahead. Then there are moments where doubt surfaces. Not loud or overwhelming, but present. It shows in brief hesitations, in the way he listens more than he speaks, in the way his expressions shift when certain topics arise. The film does not force these emotions. It lets them exist naturally, making them more believable. The world around him continues to close in. Political tension becomes more visible. There are hints of suspicion, of scrutiny, of people watching more closely than before. Oppenheimer's past associations begin to carry weight. Conversations that once felt casual now feel loaded. Every word matters more. Every connection is examined. This adds a layer of pressure that exists alongside the scientific challenge, creating a dual tension that runs throughout the narrative. The development of Los Alamos begins as an idea, but quickly turns into something more tangible. The concept of building a place dedicated to this project carries both excitement and unease. It represents progress, but also isolation. A place removed from the rest of the world, focused entirely on a single purpose. Oppenheimer's involvement in shaping this environment shows a shift in his role. He is no longer just a participant. He is becoming a leader. This transition is handled with care. It does not feel sudden or forced. Instead, it grows naturally from everything that has come before. His knowledge, his ability to connect ideas, and his increasing awareness of the stakes all contribute to this change. At the same time, there is a sense that he is stepping into something that will demand more from him than he fully understands. Leadership, in this context, is not just about direction. It is about responsibility on a scale that is difficult to grasp. The story has moved from potential to preparation. The pieces are coming together. The people are being assembled. The plan is taking shape. But beneath all of this, there is a growing tension that cannot be ignored. The question is no longer if something will happen. It is how far it will go and what it will cost. The moment Los Alamos shifts from an idea into a real place, the film takes on a different kind of weight. It no longer feels like a build-up. It feels like commitment. The land itself looks empty at first, wide and quiet, almost untouched. But that silence does not feel peaceful. It feels like something is about to be placed there that does not belong. Oppenheimer stands in that space with a sense of purpose, but also something harder to define. There is pride in being chosen, but there is also the awareness that this choice will define him in ways he cannot control later. Bringing people into this isolated world becomes one of his first major challenges. He does not just need brilliant minds. He needs people who can work under pressure, people who can handle secrecy, people who can live cut off from everything familiar. The recruitment process feels personal. He meets scientists not as a distant authority, but as someone trying to convince them to step into something uncertain. Each conversation carries its own tone. Some respond with excitement, others with hesitation, and a few with quiet concern that they do not fully express. What stands out is how Oppenheimer adapts his approach depending on who he is speaking to. With some, he leans into the intellectual challenge. With others, he speaks about duty, about the urgency of the situation. He does not manipulate, but he understands how to connect with people in a way that brings them closer to his vision. This ability begins to define his leadership style. It is not loud or forceful. It is persuasive, almost subtle, but very effective. As Los Alamos starts to take shape, the environment transforms quickly. Structures rise where there was once open land. The emptiness is replaced with activity, with movement, with a sense of controlled chaos. Scientists arrive with families, with personal histories, with expectations. The isolation becomes real. This is not just a workplace. It is a contained world, cut off from the rest of society. That separation creates its own kind of pressure, one that grows quietly as time passes. Oppenheimer moves through this space with increasing responsibility. He is no longer just thinking about ideas. He is managing people, overseeing progress, making decisions that affect the entire project. There is a visible shift in his demeanor. He becomes more focused, more controlled. The restless energy from earlier parts of the story is still there, but it is now directed. It feels sharpened, almost refined by the situation he is in. At the same time, the film does not ignore the strain this puts on him. There are moments where the weight of everything he is carrying becomes visible. These moments are not dramatic breakdowns. They are quiet, almost subtle. A pause before answering a question. A distant look during a conversation. A brief silence that lingers just a second too long. These small details build a sense of internal pressure that continues to grow. Kitty's presence in Los Alamos adds another layer to the story. She does not fade into the background. Instead, she brings her own perspective into this isolated world. Their relationship feels more grounded now, but not necessarily easier. The tension between personal life and professional responsibility becomes more noticeable. Conversations between them carry an edge. There is understanding, but also frustration. Living in a place like this does not allow for normal life, and that reality starts to affect both of them. The scientists themselves bring a mix of energy into the environment. Some are deeply focused, almost consumed by the work. Others struggle with the secrecy and isolation. There are moments of collaboration that feel exciting, where ideas come together and progress feels real. Then there are moments of doubt, where the complexity of the task becomes overwhelming. The film captures this balance without leaning too heavily in either direction. It feels honest, showing both the drive and the uncertainty that exists side by side. General Groves continues to play a critical role in shaping the project. His approach remains practical, focused on results and timelines. He is less concerned with the emotional or philosophical aspects of the work. For him, the objective is clear, and everything else is secondary. This creates an interesting dynamic with Oppenheimer. While they work toward the same goal, their perspectives are not identical. Groves pushes forward with determination. Oppenheimer begins to feel the deeper implications of what they are building. Security becomes a constant presence in Los Alamos. It is not aggressive, but it is always there. Conversations are monitored. Movements are controlled. Trust becomes something that cannot be taken for granted. Oppenheimer's past connections start to resurface in subtle ways. There are questions, quiet investigations, moments where it feels like he is being watched more closely than others. This adds another layer of tension, one that exists beneath the surface of the main narrative. Despite all of this, progress continues. The work itself becomes more detailed, more technical, but the film keeps the focus on the human side of it. It is not about explaining every scientific step. It is about showing what it feels like to be part of something this complex. The late nights, the intense discussions, the moments where breakthroughs seem just within reach, followed by setbacks that force everyone to rethink their approach. This cycle creates a rhythm that drives the story forward. Oppenheimer's role as a leader becomes more defined during this phase. He is no longer just guiding ideas. He is responsible for maintaining momentum, for keeping people focused, for making sure that the project does not lose direction. This responsibility begins to weigh on him in a different way. It is not just about success anymore. It is about what that success will mean. That question starts to linger in the background, growing stronger with each passing moment. There is a subtle shift in how he interacts with others. He listens more carefully. He chooses his words with more precision. It feels like he is constantly balancing multiple layers of thought at once. The immediate task, the long-term outcome, and the moral implications all exist together in his mind. The film does not force these ideas into direct dialogue. Instead, it allows them to emerge through behavior and tone. It is no longer just a project. It is a living, breathing environment filled with tension, ambition, and uncertainty. The foundation has been built, the people are in place, and the work is moving forward. But beneath all of this, there is a growing sense that they are approaching something irreversible. The closer they get to their goal, the harder it becomes to ignore what that goal truly represents. With Los Alamos fully operational, the energy inside the project begins to change. The early excitement of building something new slowly gives way to a more intense, almost relentless focus. The work is no longer about setting things up. It is about making something function, something that has never existed before. This shift brings a different kind of pressure. Deadlines start to feel real. Expectations tighten. Every calculation carries weight, and even small errors begin to feel unacceptable. Oppenheimer moves through this phase with a sharper presence. His role is no longer forming. It is active, demanding, and constant. He becomes the center point where ideas, problems, and decisions all converge. Scientists approach him not just for guidance, but for answers. This constant demand begins to shape how he carries himself. There is less hesitation now. His responses are quicker, more decisive, but underneath that confidence, there is a growing sense of urgency that he cannot fully hide. The conversations among the team become more focused, but also more strained. Disagreements surface more often. Not out of conflict between personalities, but because the stakes are rising. Different approaches are tested, debated, sometimes rejected. These moments are not loud, but they carry tension. The room can feel heavy during these exchanges, as if everyone understands that time is not on their side. Each delay, each failed attempt adds to the pressure building inside the project. At the same time, there is a quiet fear that begins to take shape. It is not openly discussed, but it is present in the way people speak, in the way they pause before finishing certain thoughts. The idea of what they are creating starts to feel less abstract. It becomes more real, more defined. This realization does not stop the work, but it changes the emotional tone. There is a growing awareness that success will come with consequences that cannot be undone. Oppenheimer feels this shift deeply, even if he does not express it directly. His interactions become more layered. On the surface, he remains focused and composed. Beneath that, there are moments where doubt surfaces. It shows in brief silences, in the way he looks at the work in front of him as if trying to see beyond it. The film allows these moments to exist without forcing explanation. They add depth to his character, making his internal conflict more visible without turning it into direct dialogue. Kitty continues to observe these changes closely. Her perspective becomes sharper, more critical. She sees the toll this work is taking, not just on Oppenheimer, but on everyone around them. Their conversations reflect this tension. There are moments where she challenges him, not aggressively, but with a directness that cuts through his focus. She questions the cost of what he is doing, not in a dramatic way, but in a way that feels grounded and real. These exchanges add emotional weight without slowing the pace of the story. The environment of Los Alamos begins to feel more enclosed, even though it has not physically changed. The isolation becomes more noticeable. People are living and working in the same space, with little separation between their professional and personal lives. This creates a sense of confinement. Small frustrations grow more easily. The outside world feels distant, almost unreal. Everything that matters exists within this contained environment, and that intensity continues to build. General Groves remains focused on progress, but his presence starts to carry a different kind of pressure. His expectations do not change, but the urgency behind them becomes more visible. He pushes for results with a steady determination that does not allow for much flexibility. His interactions with Oppenheimer reflect this. There is still mutual respect, but the conversations become more direct, more focused on outcomes. The room for uncertainty begins to shrink. Security concerns also begin to intensify. The idea that information could leak, that something could go wrong beyond the scientific challenges, adds another layer of tension. Oppenheimer finds himself navigating not just the project, but also the scrutiny surrounding it. Questions about loyalty and past associations do not disappear. They remain present, sometimes subtle, sometimes more direct. This creates a constant background pressure that never fully fades. The scientific challenges themselves grow more complex. Progress is made, but it is not smooth. Breakthroughs are followed by new problems. Solutions lead to more questions. This cycle creates a rhythm that keeps everyone in a state of constant engagement. There is little room for rest. Even moments that should feel like progress are quickly replaced by the next challenge. The film captures this without getting lost in technical detail, keeping the focus on how it affects the people involved. Oppenheimer's leadership is tested more directly during this phase. It is no longer enough to guide ideas. He must maintain morale, keep the team focused, and ensure that progress continues despite the growing pressure. This requires a different kind of strength. He cannot show too much doubt even if he feels it. He must project confidence, even when the outcome is uncertain. This balancing act becomes one of the most demanding aspects of his role. There are moments where the weight of everything begins to show more clearly. Not in dramatic outbursts, but in small, controlled ways. A slight change in tone. A longer pause before responding. A look that lingers on something just a bit too long. These details build a sense that the pressure is becoming harder to manage. The closer they get to their goal, the more intense everything feels. The relationships within the team also begin to shift. Trust is still present, but it is no longer simple. The combination of secrecy, pressure, and isolation affects how people interact. Conversations become more cautious. Not because of fear of each other, but because of the environment they are in. Everyone understands that what they are working on is larger than any individual, and that awareness changes the way they communicate. As this progresses, There is a clear sense that they are moving closer to something significant. The work is advancing. The pieces are coming together. But with that progress comes a growing tension that cannot be ignored. The idea of success begins to feel complicated. It is no longer just about achieving a goal. It is about what that achievement will mean once it becomes real. The atmosphere is fully charged. Los Alamos feels like a place where something irreversible is being built, piece by piece, moment by moment. The people involved are fully committed, but the emotional cost of that commitment is becoming harder to ignore. The story has moved beyond preparation and into execution, and the weight of what they are creating is now impossible to avoid. As the work intensifies, the rhythm inside Los Alamos becomes almost mechanical. Days blend into nights, and time starts to lose its usual structure. The focus is constant, almost unbroken. There is always something to solve, always a problem waiting for attention. This continuous pressure creates an environment where people are fully absorbed in the task, but also slowly worn down by it. The sense of urgency is no longer something that comes and goes. It is permanent. Oppenheimer begins to operate at a different level during this phase. His mind seems to move faster, processing multiple layers of complexity at once. He listens, evaluates, and responds with a clarity that keeps the project moving forward. But this sharpness comes at a cost. The more he gives to the work, the less of himself remains available for anything else. There is a growing distance between him and the world outside the project, even within his own personal life. The scientific challenges become more precise, more demanding. It is no longer about broad theories or general ideas. The work now requires exactness. Every detail matters. Small miscalculations can lead to major setbacks. This level of precision adds a different kind of tension. It is quieter, more focused, but no less intense. The team operates in a constant state of concentration, where even brief moments of distraction feel risky. Discussions among the scientists take on a sharper tone. Not aggressive, but more direct. There is less room for speculation and more demand for results. Ideas are tested quickly. Weak points are identified and addressed without hesitation. This creates an environment that feels both efficient and unforgiving. Everyone is expected to keep up. Everyone is expected to contribute at the highest level. The pressure to perform becomes a shared experience. At the same time, the emotional weight of the project continues to grow. The closer they get to making real progress, the harder it becomes to ignore what they are building. This awareness does not stop the work, but it changes how it feels. There is a quiet tension that exists beneath every discussion, every calculation. It is not always spoken, but it is always there. Oppenheimer's internal conflict becomes more visible, though still controlled. There are moments where he seems fully aligned with the goal, driven by the challenge and the importance of the work. Then there are moments where hesitation appears, subtle but noticeable. He begins to question not just how to succeed, but what success will actually mean. These thoughts do not slow him down, but they add a layer of complexity to his decisions. Kitty's role becomes more defined in this phase. She is not directly involved in the work, but she sees its effects clearly. Her perspective remains grounded, focused on the human side of what is happening. She notices the changes in Oppenheimer, the way he becomes more distant, more absorbed. Their interactions reflect this shift. There are moments of connection, but they are often brief, interrupted by the demands of the project. This creates a sense of emotional distance that continues to grow. General Groves maintains his steady push forward. His focus does not waver. He tracks progress, monitors timelines, and ensures that nothing slows the project unnecessarily. His approach remains practical, but there is an underlying intensity that becomes more noticeable. He understands the importance of what they are doing, and that understanding drives his decisions. His interactions with Oppenheimer become more focused, centered on results rather than discussion. Security concerns continue to linger in the background, but they begin to feel more present. The idea that something could go wrong beyond the scientific challenges adds another layer of pressure. Oppenheimer finds himself navigating this carefully. He must maintain trust within the team while also being aware of the scrutiny surrounding him. This balancing act becomes more demanding as the project progresses. The environment of Los Alamos feels more closed than ever. The isolation that once felt manageable now feels heavier. People are living within the same boundaries every day, with little connection to the outside world. This creates a sense of confinement that affects everyone differently. Some become more focused, channeling all their energy into the work. Others begin to feel the strain more openly, showing signs of frustration or fatigue. Despite these challenges, progress continues. There are moments where the team comes close to breakthroughs, where the pieces begin to align. These moments bring a sense of excitement, but it is always controlled. There is no room for celebration yet. Each step forward is immediately followed by the next challenge. The momentum must be maintained, and there is no time to pause. Oppenheimer's leadership is tested in new ways during this phase. It is not just about guiding the science. It is about managing people under constant pressure. He must keep the team motivated, focused, and aligned with the goal. This requires a level of emotional control that becomes harder to sustain. He cannot allow doubt to spread. He cannot show too much uncertainty. At the same time, he cannot ignore the reality of what they are facing. There are moments where the tension becomes almost visible. Conversations carry an edge, even when the words remain calm. The atmosphere feels dense, as if the weight of the project is pressing down on everyone at once. These moments are not exaggerated. They are subtle, built through tone and pacing rather than dramatic action. This approach keeps the story grounded, making the tension feel more real. As the work moves closer to a critical stage, the sense of inevitability grows stronger. It becomes clear that they are approaching a point where everything will be tested. The preparation, the calculations, the decisions, all of it will lead to a moment that cannot be reversed. This realization adds a new layer of intensity to everything that happens. Oppenheimer stands at the center of this, carrying the weight of both the progress and the consequences. He continues to move forward, driven by a mix of purpose and uncertainty. The closer he gets to the outcome, the more complex his internal state becomes. It is no longer just about completing the project. It is about understanding what that completion will bring. The story reaches a point where the tension feels fully developed. The work is nearing a critical phase. The people involved are deeply invested, but also increasingly aware of the stakes. The atmosphere inside Los Alamos is heavy with anticipation, and it is clear that something significant is about to happen, something that will define everything that comes after. As the project moves closer to a decisive stage, the energy inside Los Alamos begins to feel tighter, more compressed. There is less room for error now, and everyone senses it. The conversations become shorter, more precise, focused only on what matters in the moment. Even the smallest delay starts to feel significant. Time is no longer something they have in abundance. It becomes something they measure carefully, almost obsessively, as if every passing hour carries weight. Oppenheimer's presence reflects this shift. He appears more controlled than ever, but also more burdened. His decisions come quickly, yet they seem to carry more thought behind them than before. There is a visible awareness in the way he approaches each problem, as if he is not just considering the solution, but also the consequences attached to it. This added layer does not slow him down, but it changes the way he engages with the work. Everything feels more deliberate. The scientific progress reaches a point where theory begins to transition into something real. Calculations are no longer distant ideas on paper. They are steps toward an outcome that can be tested. This transition brings a different kind of tension. It is no longer about whether something can work in theory. It is about whether it will work in reality. That difference creates a pressure that is harder to manage because it leaves less room for uncertainty. Among the team, there is a noticeable change in behavior. The earlier sense of exploration gives way to a more focused determination. People speak less about possibilities and more about execution. The atmosphere becomes sharper, almost rigid. There is still collaboration, but it feels more intense. Each person understands that their role is critical, and that understanding adds weight to every interaction. At the same time, the emotional undercurrent continues to grow stronger. The closer they get to their goal, the harder it becomes to ignore what lies at the end of it. This awareness does not stop anyone, but it changes how the work feels. There is a quiet tension that exists even in moments of progress. Success no longer feels purely positive. It carries a shadow that becomes more defined with each step forward. Oppenheimer's internal conflict becomes more pronounced, though still contained. There are moments where his focus seems absolute, where he appears fully committed to seeing the project through. Then there are moments where hesitation surfaces, subtle but clear. It shows in the way he pauses before speaking, in the way his attention lingers on certain details longer than necessary. These moments add depth to his character, showing that his confidence is not without complexity. Kitty continues to observe these changes with a critical eye. She does not ignore what is happening, and she does not accept it without question. Her conversations with Oppenheimer carry a sharper tone now, reflecting both concern and frustration. She sees the distance growing between them, and she recognizes the cost of the path he is on. These interactions add emotional weight, grounding the story in personal reality amidst the larger scale of events. General Groves remains focused, but his intensity becomes more visible. The timeline is no longer flexible. The expectation is clear, and the pressure to meet it is constant. His interactions with the team are direct, sometimes blunt, but always purposeful. He does not dwell on uncertainty. His role is to ensure progress, and he approaches it with unwavering determination. This creates a contrast with Oppenheimer, whose perspective continues to expand beyond the immediate objective. Security concerns tighten further as the project approaches a critical point. The scrutiny becomes more noticeable, less subtle than before. Oppenheimer feels this shift, even if it is not openly discussed. There is a sense that every action, every decision, is being observed more closely. This adds another layer of pressure, one that exists alongside the scientific and emotional challenges he is already managing. The environment of Los Alamos reflects this increasing tension. It feels more confined, more intense. The routines that once provided structure now feel restrictive. The isolation becomes harder to ignore. People are not just working together. They are living within the same pressure day after day. This creates a shared experience that binds them, but also amplifies the stress they are under. Progress continues, but it is no longer steady. There are moments of advancement followed by setbacks that feel more significant than before. Each problem takes longer to resolve. Each solution feels more critical. This uneven rhythm adds to the tension, making the outcome feel less certain. The closer they get, the more unpredictable the process becomes. Oppenheimer's leadership is tested at a deeper level during this phase. It is not just about guiding the project anymore. It is about holding everything together when the pressure threatens to pull it apart. He must keep the team focused, manage the growing tension, and continue moving forward despite the uncertainty. This requires a level of control that becomes increasingly difficult to maintain. There are moments where the strain becomes visible in small, controlled ways. A slight shift in tone, a longer silence than usual, a glance that reveals more than words. These details build a sense that the pressure is reaching a point where it cannot be easily contained. The film captures this without exaggeration, allowing the tension to feel natural and grounded. As the project moves closer to a defining moment, the sense of inevitability becomes stronger. It is no longer a distant possibility. It is something that is approaching with certainty. The work, the decisions, the sacrifices, all of it is leading to a point that will determine everything that follows. This realization adds weight to every scene, making even small moments feel significant. Oppenheimer stands at the center of this growing intensity, fully aware that the path forward cannot be undone. He continues to move ahead, driven by a combination of purpose and uncertainty. The closer he gets to the outcome, the more complex his internal state becomes. It is no longer just about achieving a goal. It is about facing what that achievement will bring. The story reaches a point where the tension feels almost at its peak, yet still building. The project is on the edge of something critical. The people involved are fully committed, but the emotional and psychological weight of their work is becoming impossible to ignore. Everything is aligned toward a moment that will change the direction of the story in a way that cannot be reversed. The approach to the test phase does not feel like a sudden leap. It feels like a slow tightening, as if everything inside Los Alamos is being pulled toward a single point. The conversations grow quieter, but more intense. People speak with purpose, avoiding anything unnecessary. Even the air in the rooms feels different, heavier, as if the weight of what is coming has already begun to settle over everyone. This is no longer preparation in the usual sense. It is the final stretch before something irreversible. Oppenheimer carries himself with a calm that feels deliberate, almost constructed. On the surface, he appears composed, fully in control of the situation. But beneath that, there is a clear sense of tension. His thoughts seem to move faster than ever, jumping between calculations, outcomes, and possibilities that extend beyond the immediate task. He does not show panic, but there is a growing intensity in the way he focuses, as if he is trying to hold everything together through sheer concentration. The team begins to narrow its attention toward the final objective. The broader discussions fade away, replaced by highly specific tasks that must be executed with precision. Each person knows their role, and there is little room for uncertainty. The collaboration that once felt exploratory now feels exact. Every movement, every decision, is part of a larger sequence that must align perfectly. This shift creates a different kind of tension, one that comes from knowing that there is no longer space for error. At the same time, the emotional weight of the project reaches a new level. The idea of what they are about to test is no longer abstract in any way. It is real, defined, and close. This realization affects everyone differently. Some respond by becoming even more focused, pushing aside any thoughts that might distract them. Others carry a quiet unease that shows in subtle ways, in the way they speak, in the way they pause before continuing their work. The film captures this range without forcing it, allowing each reaction to feel natural. Kitty's perspective becomes sharper as the moment approaches. She sees the shift in Oppenheimer more clearly now, the way he becomes more distant, more absorbed in something that feels larger than both of them. Their conversations reflect this change. There is less room for connection, more space filled by what remains unsaid. She understands the importance of what he is doing, but she does not ignore the cost. This tension adds a personal dimension that runs alongside the larger narrative. General Groves intensifies his focus on execution. The planning becomes more detailed, more structured. There is a clear expectation that everything must proceed without delay. His interactions with Oppenheimer become more direct, centered entirely on the success of the test. There is little room for philosophical discussion now. The objective is clear, and his role is to ensure that nothing interferes with it. This creates a dynamic where practicality takes priority over reflection. As the test site comes into focus, the environment shifts once again. The open space feels different from Los Alamos. It carries a sense of exposure, but also isolation. The vastness of the area contrasts with the intensity of what is about to happen there. It feels like a place chosen not just for its physical qualities, but for its distance from everything else. This distance adds to the sense that what is about to occur exists outside normal boundaries. The preparations at the site unfold with careful precision. Equipment is set, positions are assigned, and every detail is checked repeatedly. There is no rush in the actions, but there is urgency in the atmosphere. Each step feels significant, as if even the smallest oversight could lead to failure. This creates a tension that builds steadily, without needing dramatic moments. It is the quiet intensity of people who understand the importance of what they are doing. Oppenheimer moves through this process with focused determination. He observes, listens, and makes adjustments where needed. His role here is both active and reflective. He is part of the execution, but he is also aware of the broader meaning of what is about to happen. This dual awareness becomes more visible in his expressions, in the way he looks at the site, at the people, at the work being done. It feels as if he is already trying to process something that has not yet occurred. Among the team, there is a shared understanding that they are approaching a defining moment. This understanding does not lead to open discussion. Instead, it exists quietly, shaping the way people behave. There is less casual interaction, fewer distractions. Everyone is focused, But there is also a sense of anticipation that cannot be fully contained. It sits beneath the surface, present in every action. The technical challenges do not disappear at this stage. If anything, they become more critical. Final adjustments are made, calculations are reviewed again and again. The possibility of failure remains real, and that uncertainty adds to the tension. Success is not guaranteed, and everyone knows it. This awareness keeps the atmosphere grounded, preventing it from becoming overly confident or predictable. Oppenheimer's internal conflict reaches a point where it feels unavoidable, even if he continues to control it. The closer he gets to the test, the more present his doubts become. They do not stop him, but they shape the way he experiences this moment. He is not just thinking about whether the test will succeed. He is thinking about what that success will mean, how it will change everything that comes after. This awareness adds depth to his character, making the moment feel more significant. As the final preparations near completion, time seems to slow down. Each step feels more deliberate, more focused. The anticipation builds steadily, without release. The film allows this buildup to stretch, creating a sense of tension that feels almost physical. You can feel the weight of the moment approaching even before anything has happened. The relationships within the team also reflect this shift. There is a sense of unity, but it is not expressed through words. It exists in the way people trust each other to perform their roles, in the way they move through the final steps without hesitation. This quiet coordination adds to the feeling that everything is aligned toward a single outcome. The story stands on the edge of a moment that has been building since the very beginning. The preparation is complete. The people are in place. The tension has reached a level where it feels almost ready to break. Oppenheimer stands at the center of it all, fully aware that what happens next will not just mark the success of a project, but the beginning of something far more complex and far more difficult to understand. The final hours before the test carry a kind of silence that feels heavier than anything that came before. It is not the absence of sound, but the absence of distraction. Every movement, every word, every decision feels deliberate. The world outside this moment seems to fade, leaving only the task ahead. Time slows in a way that feels almost unnatural, stretching each second into something that demands attention. No one says it directly, but everyone understands that they are standing at the edge of something that cannot be undone. Oppenheimer's focus sharpens to an almost extreme level. He speaks less now, choosing his words with care. His attention moves constantly, scanning details, checking for anything that might have been overlooked. On the surface, he appears steady, fully engaged in the process. Beneath that, there is a growing tension that becomes harder to ignore. It shows in the way he pauses, in the way his gaze lingers on certain elements longer than necessary, as if trying to anticipate every possible outcome at once. The team operates with precision. Each person follows their role without hesitation, moving through the final preparations with a quiet efficiency. There is no room for uncertainty now. The time for discussion has passed. What remains is execution. This creates a focused energy that fills the space, replacing the earlier tension with something more controlled, but no less intense. It feels like everything has narrowed down to a single purpose. Weather becomes an unexpected factor, adding another layer of uncertainty. Conditions are not fully stable, and this introduces a risk that cannot be ignored. The discussions around whether to proceed carry a different kind of tension. It is no longer about solving a problem through calculation. It is about making a decision with incomplete control over the environment. This moment highlights the limits of their influence, reminding everyone that not everything can be predicted or managed. Oppenheimer faces this uncertainty with a composed exterior, but the weight of the decision is clear. Delaying the test carries its own risks. Moving forward does as well. This balance between caution and urgency defines the moment. He listens, considers, and ultimately leans toward action. The choice does not feel triumphant. It feels necessary. This distinction adds depth to the scene, showing that progress is not always driven by confidence, but sometimes by the absence of better options. As the countdown approaches, the atmosphere shifts again. The controlled focus remains, but it is now mixed with anticipation that is impossible to suppress completely. People take their positions, each aware that their role, no matter how small, contributes to the outcome. The silence becomes more pronounced. Even small sounds seem louder, more defined, as if the environment itself is preparing for what is about to happen. Oppenheimer steps into a position where observation becomes his primary role. He is no longer adjusting or directing in the same way. The process has moved beyond that. Now, he must watch as everything unfolds. This shift is significant. It removes the sense of control he once had and replaces it with something more passive, but also more intense. Watching becomes its own form of pressure, especially when the outcome carries such weight. The countdown itself is not rushed. It unfolds with a deliberate pace, allowing the tension to build steadily. Each passing moment feels longer than it should. The anticipation grows, not through dramatic action, but through stillness. Faces remain focused, movements minimal. The entire environment feels suspended, as if waiting for a single moment to break the tension that has been building for so long. Inside Oppenheimer, the conflict reaches a point where it feels almost unavoidable. The intellectual achievement stands in direct contrast with the potential consequences. These thoughts do not stop the process, but they shape how he experiences it. He is not just waiting to see if the test will succeed. He is waiting to see what that success will mean, not just for the project, but for everything that follows. When the moment finally arrives, it does not feel like a release at first. It feels like a shift, a sudden change in the atmosphere that is difficult to process immediately. The reaction is not instant celebration. It is something more complex. There is a brief pause, a moment where the mind tries to catch up with what has just happened. This delay adds to the intensity, making the experience feel more real. The visual impact of the test carries a weight that goes beyond spectacle. It is not presented as something to admire. It feels powerful but also unsettling. The scale of it is difficult to fully grasp, even for those who created it. This reaction is reflected in the faces of the people watching. There is recognition of success, but also something deeper, something that suggests an awareness of the consequences that come with it. Oppenheimer's response stands at the center of this moment. He does not react with simple satisfaction. His expression carries a mix of realization and reflection. It feels as if the meaning of what has just occurred is unfolding in real time, not all at once, but in layers. This reaction becomes one of the most important emotional points in the story, capturing the complexity of achieving something that changes everything. The team around him begins to process the outcome in their own ways. Some show signs of relief, others remain quiet, almost withdrawn. The shared experience does not lead to a single unified reaction. Instead, it highlights how differently people respond to the same moment. This variety adds depth, making the scene feel more grounded and authentic. As the immediate aftermath settles in, the sense of achievement is present, but it is not dominant. It exists alongside a growing awareness of what has been set in motion. The success of the test confirms that the project has reached its goal, but it also raises questions that cannot be easily answered. This duality becomes the defining feature of the moment. The story has crossed a major threshold. The long buildup has led to a result that cannot be undone. The tension that once focused on whether the test would succeed now shifts toward understanding what that success means. Oppenheimer stands at the center of this transition, fully aware that the path forward will not be defined by the same questions that brought him here. The silence that follows the test feels different from the silence before it. Earlier, it carried anticipation. Now it carries weight. The kind that settles slowly, almost quietly, but does not leave. The immediate reactions fade, and what remains is something harder to define. Success has been achieved, but it does not bring the kind of clarity one might expect. Instead, it opens a space filled with questions that no one seems ready to answer directly. Oppenheimer moves through this aftermath with a noticeable shift in presence. The sharp focus that guided him through the project is still there, but it now feels layered with something heavier. His expressions carry more thought, more reflection. He listens more than he speaks, as if trying to process not just what has happened, but what it means moving forward. This change is subtle, but it marks a clear transition in his character. The team begins to disperse from the intensity of the test environment, but the energy does not fully release. Conversations pick up again, but they are different now. There is acknowledgement of what has been accomplished, but it is not expressed with excitement. It feels measured, controlled. People speak carefully, as if aware that the significance of the moment cannot be reduced to simple words. This restraint adds to the emotional tone, making it feel more grounded. General Groves approaches the situation with a practical mindset, as expected. For him, the success of the test confirms the effectiveness of the project. His focus shifts quickly toward the next steps, toward how this achievement will be used. There is little room for reflection in his perspective. The objective has been met, and now it must be applied. This creates a contrast with Oppenheimer, whose thoughts are beginning to move in a different direction. The discussions that follow begin to introduce the reality of what comes next. The project is no longer contained within Los Alamos or the test site. It is about to enter the world in a way that cannot be controlled in the same way. This transition brings a new kind of tension. It is no longer about whether something can be done. It is about what will be done with it. This shift changes the nature of the story, moving it from creation to consequence. Oppenheimer's internal conflict becomes more visible during this phase. The intellectual achievement remains undeniable, but it is now accompanied by a growing awareness of its impact. He begins to reflect more openly, though still in a controlled manner. His conversations carry more depth, more weight. He is not just thinking about the success of the project, but about the direction it is heading. This adds a new dimension to his character, one that moves beyond ambition into something more complex. Kitty's perspective remains grounded, but it becomes more direct. She does not avoid the reality of what has been created. Her interactions with Oppenheimer reflect a clear understanding of the situation, along with a concern that feels both personal and broader. Their conversations carry a different tone now, shaped by what has already happened rather than what might happen. This shift adds emotional depth, showing how the consequences extend beyond the professional sphere. The environment around them begins to change as well. The intense focus of Los Alamos starts to loosen, but it does not disappear entirely. The sense of isolation fades slightly, replaced by a growing connection to the outside world. News, decisions, and discussions begin to move beyond the boundaries of the project. This creates a feeling that the story is expanding, that the impact of what has been done is beginning to spread. Among the scientists, there is a range of reactions that reflect the complexity of the moment. Some remain focused on the technical achievement, viewing it as a milestone in scientific progress. Others begin to question the implications more openly, though often in private or in carefully chosen conversations. This variety adds depth to the narrative, showing that there is no single way to process what has happened. Oppenheimer finds himself at the center of these differing perspectives. His role has shifted from leading the creation to navigating its aftermath. This requires a different kind of thinking, one that extends beyond science into ethics and responsibility. He does not have clear answers, and the film does not attempt to provide them. Instead, it allows the uncertainty to exist, making the situation feel more real and more complex. The tone during this phase becomes more reflective, but it does not lose its tension. The pressure has changed shape, moving from immediate execution to long-term consequence. This creates a different kind of intensity, one that builds slowly rather than sharply. The story begins to explore what it means to carry the weight of something that cannot be undone. There are moments where Oppenheimer appears almost distant, as if his thoughts are focused on something beyond the present. These moments are not exaggerated, but they are noticeable. They suggest that his mind is moving ahead, trying to understand the larger impact of what has been set in motion. This adds depth to his character, showing that the project has affected him in ways that go beyond the immediate outcome. General Groves continues to push forward with a clear objective, but the contrast between his approach and Oppenheimer's becomes more defined. Where Groves sees success as a step toward a goal, Oppenheimer begins to see it as a turning point with consequences that are harder to control. This difference creates a subtle tension between them, one that does not need direct conflict to be felt. As the narrative progresses, the sense of inevitability shifts from the test itself to what follows. The question is no longer about whether something will happen. It is about how the outcome will unfold and what it will mean for everyone involved. This transition keeps the story moving forward, even as it becomes more reflective. The story has clearly entered a new phase. The creation is complete, but the consequences are just beginning to take shape. Oppenheimer stands at the center of this shift, carrying both the achievement and the uncertainty that comes with it. The tension remains, but it now points toward a future that feels far less defined and far more difficult to navigate. The transition from creation to consequence does not arrive with a clear boundary. It unfolds gradually, almost quietly, as the weight of what has been achieved begins to settle into reality. The energy that once drove the project forward now feels redirected, no longer focused on building something new, but on understanding what has already been set in motion. This shift changes the emotional tone of everything around Oppenheimer. The urgency remains, but it is no longer tied to progress. It is tied to outcome. Oppenheimer finds himself moving through a world that feels both familiar and altered at the same time. The people around him are the same, the environment has not drastically changed, but the meaning behind everything feels different. Conversations carry more weight. Words are chosen more carefully. There is a growing awareness that nothing can return to the way it was before. This realization does not come all at once. It builds slowly, shaping his perspective in subtle but significant ways. The discussions about how the weapon will be used begin to take a more central role. These conversations are not presented with dramatic confrontation. Instead, they unfold in controlled settings, where decisions are made with a sense of authority that leaves little room for debate. Oppenheimer listens closely, aware that his role in these discussions is complicated. He has contributed to the creation, but the decisions about its use are not entirely his to make. This separation adds to his internal conflict. General Groves remains consistent in his approach. For him, the success of the project leads directly to its application. There is no hesitation in his perspective. The objective has been achieved, and now it must be used to fulfill its purpose. His interactions with Oppenheimer reflect this clarity. He does not dwell on uncertainty or moral complexity. He focuses on results, on outcomes that align with the goals set from the beginning. This creates a contrast that becomes more pronounced with each conversation. Oppenheimer's responses during these moments reveal a growing tension within him. He does not openly resist, but there is a noticeable shift in how he engages. He asks questions that go beyond the immediate objective. He considers implications that extend further than the current discussion. This approach does not change the direction of the decisions being made, but it highlights the difference in how he is beginning to see the situation. Kitty's presence continues to provide a grounded perspective. She observes the changes in Oppenheimer with a clarity that cuts through the complexity of the situation. Their conversations reflect a deeper level of tension now, shaped by what has already happened and what is about to follow. She does not avoid difficult topics, and she does not soften her views. This directness adds a layer of honesty to their interactions, making them feel more immediate and real. As the narrative expands beyond Los Alamos, the scale of the story becomes more apparent. The project is no longer contained within a single location. Its impact begins to spread, reaching into areas that feel far removed from the controlled environment where it was created. This expansion adds a sense of inevitability, as if the consequences are moving outward in ways that cannot be contained or reversed. Among the scientists, the range of reactions continues to evolve. Some begin to distance themselves from the emotional weight of what has been created, focusing instead on the technical achievement. Others become more reflective, questioning the broader impact of their work. These differing responses create a complex atmosphere where no single perspective dominates. The film allows these viewpoints to coexist, adding depth to the narrative. Oppenheimer stands at the intersection of these perspectives, carrying elements of both. He understands the significance of the achievement, but he cannot ignore its implications. This dual awareness shapes his actions and his thoughts, creating a sense of internal tension that continues to grow. He is no longer just a leader or a scientist. He becomes a figure navigating the space between creation and consequence. The tone during this phase becomes more introspective, but it does not lose its intensity. The tension shifts from immediate action to long-term impact. This creates a different kind of engagement, one that relies on reflection rather than momentum. The pacing slows slightly, allowing the weight of the situation to settle in a way that feels natural rather than forced. There are moments where Oppenheimer appears almost detached, as if he is observing the situation from a distance rather than fully participating in it. These moments are subtle, but they add to the sense that he is struggling to reconcile the different aspects of what has happened. This internal distance becomes an important part of his character, showing how deeply the experience has affected him. General Groves continues to move forward with clarity and purpose, but the contrast between his perspective and Oppenheimer's becomes increasingly evident. Where Groves sees a successful outcome leading to a clear next step, Oppenheimer begins to see a series of consequences that extend beyond immediate goals. This difference does not lead to direct conflict, but it creates an underlying tension that shapes their interactions. As the decisions around the use of the weapon become more defined, the sense of inevitability grows stronger. The path forward is no longer uncertain. It is being set into motion with a level of authority that leaves little room for change. This realization adds weight to every scene, making even quiet moments feel significant. Oppenheimer's internal conflict reaches a point where it becomes more difficult to contain. He continues to engage with the process, but his awareness of its implications becomes more pronounced. This awareness does not stop the progression of events, but it shapes how he experiences them. It adds depth to his character, making his journey feel more complex and more human. The story has fully transitioned into its next phase. The creation is behind them, and the consequences are unfolding with increasing clarity. The tension remains strong, but it has changed in nature. It is no longer about achieving a goal. It is about facing what that achievement brings. Oppenheimer stands at the center of this shift, navigating a reality that feels both inevitable and deeply uncertain. The movement toward action unfolds with a quiet certainty that feels almost unsettling. There is no dramatic announcement, no moment where everything suddenly changes. Instead, decisions solidify behind closed doors, and their impact begins to move outward in a way that cannot be reversed. The atmosphere shifts again, not with urgency this time, but with a kind of controlled inevitability. What was once debated now feels decided, and that finality brings a different kind of tension. Oppenheimer senses this shift clearly. The space for questioning begins to narrow, and the conversations around him reflect that change. There is less discussion, more confirmation. The tone becomes firm, almost procedural. He listens, but his reactions show a growing distance between him and the direction things are taking. It is not open resistance. It is something quieter, a realization that his influence has limits, and those limits are now being reached. The weight of responsibility begins to settle differently on him. Earlier, it was tied to the success of the project. Now, it connects to what that success enables. This change is subtle, but it reshapes how he carries himself. His posture, his tone, even his presence feels altered. There is a sense that he is no longer moving forward with the same clarity of purpose. Instead, he is navigating a path that feels more complicated, more uncertain. Kitty notices this shift with precision. She does not need explanations to understand what is happening. Her conversations with Oppenheimer become more pointed, reflecting both concern and a kind of grounded realism. She recognizes that the situation has moved beyond theory and into consequence. Her words carry weight, not because they are dramatic, but because they cut directly to the truth of the moment. This dynamic adds emotional tension that feels immediate and personal. The broader environment begins to reflect the scale of what is unfolding. News, discussions, and decisions expand beyond the controlled world of Los Alamos. The project is no longer contained. Its presence begins to influence a larger landscape, one that feels less predictable and far more complex. This expansion adds a sense of momentum, as if events are now moving faster than the individuals involved can fully process. Among the scientists, the reactions continue to evolve. Some begin to withdraw slightly, focusing less on the broader implications and more on their specific roles. Others become more vocal in their concerns, though often in private settings. These differing responses create a layered atmosphere, where agreement is not universal and certainty is difficult to find. The film allows these perspectives to exist without forcing a resolution, keeping the tension grounded. Oppenheimer finds himself increasingly isolated within this environment. Not physically, but mentally. His thoughts seem to move in a direction that others are not fully sharing. He begins to reflect more deeply on the path that led to this point, connecting decisions and moments in a way that reveals a growing sense of unease. This reflection does not stop the progression of events, but it changes how he experiences them. General Groves remains steady, focused on execution and outcome. His approach does not shift with the changing emotional tone. For him, the process continues as planned. His interactions with Oppenheimer become more streamlined, centered on what needs to be done rather than what it means. This consistency creates a clear contrast, highlighting the difference between action and reflection. As the moment of use approaches, the tension becomes more internal than external. There are no large-scale displays of conflict. Instead, the intensity exists within individuals, in the way they think, in the way they carry themselves. This approach keeps the story grounded, allowing the weight of the situation to build without relying on dramatic escalation. Oppenheimer's internal conflict reaches a point where it begins to influence his interactions more directly. His questions become more pointed, his responses more measured. He does not disengage, but he no longer moves with the same sense of alignment. This shift is subtle, but it adds depth to his character, showing how the reality of the situation is reshaping his perspective. The pacing during this phase feels deliberate, almost restrained. The story does not rush toward the outcome. It allows the tension to build slowly, giving space for the emotional weight to settle. Each scene adds another layer, another piece of understanding, making the eventual outcome feel more significant. Kitty's presence continues to ground the narrative. She does not offer solutions, but she provides clarity. Her perspective cuts through the complexity, focusing on the human impact rather than the abstract reasoning. This adds balance to the story, preventing it from becoming too detached from reality. As decisions finalize and the path forward becomes fixed, the sense of inevitability reaches its peak. There is no longer a question of what will happen. The only question is how it will unfold and what it will leave behind. This realization creates a quiet intensity that runs through every moment. Oppenheimer stands at the center of this, fully aware that the line between creation and consequence has been crossed completely. He continues to move forward, but his understanding of the situation has changed in a way that cannot be undone. This awareness becomes the defining element of his character at this stage. The story feels poised on the edge of a moment that carries immense weight. The decisions have been made, the direction is set, and the outcome is approaching with certainty. The tension remains strong, but it is now shaped by anticipation of consequence rather than uncertainty of action. Oppenheimer's journey continues to deepen, moving further into a space where answers are not simple and resolution feels distant. When the outcome finally arrives, it does not feel like a moment that begins and ends in a single instant. It spreads, first as information, then as realization, and finally as something heavier that settles into the atmosphere around everyone involved. The distance between action and understanding becomes clear. What was decided in controlled rooms now exists in the world, beyond calculation, beyond theory. The result is not experienced directly by those who created it, yet its impact reaches them in a way that feels impossible to ignore. Oppenheimer receives the news in a setting that feels almost ordinary compared to the magnitude of what it represents. This contrast creates a quiet tension. There is no dramatic shift in environment, no visual cue that matches the scale of the event. Instead, the weight comes from within, from the way the information is processed. His reaction is not immediate or outwardly intense. It unfolds slowly, as if his mind is working through layers of meaning that cannot be grasped all at once. The people around him respond in different ways, reflecting the complexity of the moment. Some express a sense of accomplishment, viewing the outcome as confirmation that the project has achieved its purpose. Others remain more reserved, their reactions shaped by an awareness that goes beyond the immediate result. This range of responses adds depth to the scene, showing that there is no single way to process something of this scale. The atmosphere becomes charged, but not in a loud or chaotic way. It is a controlled intensity, built on the understanding that everything has changed. Conversations begin to carry a different tone, one that reflects both acknowledgement and uncertainty. Words are chosen carefully, as if there is an unspoken agreement that the situation cannot be reduced to simple expressions. Oppenheimer's internal state becomes more visible during this phase. The conflict that has been building throughout the story reaches a point where it can no longer remain entirely contained. His expressions, his posture, the way he engages with others, all reflect a deeper level of reflection. He is not just thinking about what has happened. He is trying to understand its place within a larger context, one that extends far beyond the immediate moment. There is a gathering where the success is addressed more openly, and the tone shifts again. What should feel like a moment of recognition carries an undercurrent that complicates it. The energy in the room is mixed. There is acknowledgement of achievement, but it is not pure or uncomplicated. The reactions feel layered, shaped by both pride and something harder to define. This duality becomes one of the most important aspects of this phase. Oppenheimer's presence in this setting becomes a focal point. He is recognized for his role, placed at the center of the achievement. Yet his response does not fully align with the tone around him. There is a distance in the way he processes the moment, as if he is already looking beyond it. This creates a contrast that adds tension, highlighting the difference between public perception and internal reality. The film leans into this contrast by focusing on his perspective. The environment around him begins to feel altered, not because it has physically changed, but because of how he experiences it. Sounds, expressions, movements, all seem to carry a different weight. It feels as if the world is continuing as expected, but his connection to it has shifted in a way that makes everything feel slightly out of place. Kitty observes this change with a clarity that remains consistent throughout the story. She understands that the moment carries more than what is being openly expressed. Her interactions with Oppenheimer reflect a deeper awareness of what he is going through. There is no need for elaborate conversation. The understanding exists in the way they look at each other, in the brief exchanges that carry more meaning than longer discussions. General Groves approaches the outcome with the same practical mindset that has defined his role. For him, the result confirms the success of the project and validates the decisions that led to it. His focus remains on the broader objective, on what this means in terms of outcome and strategy. This perspective does not shift, even as the emotional tone around him becomes more complex. As the reality of the situation continues to unfold, the story begins to explore the idea of consequence more directly. It is no longer an abstract concept or a future possibility. It is present, shaping how characters think, speak, and act. This shift adds a deeper layer to the narrative, moving it beyond achievement into reflection. Oppenheimer's internal conflict becomes the central force during this phase. The questions that once existed quietly in the background now take on greater significance. He begins to confront the full weight of what has been set in motion, not in a dramatic or exaggerated way, but in a manner that feels grounded and real. This confrontation does not provide answers. Instead, it deepens the complexity of his experience. The pacing remains controlled, allowing each moment to carry its full weight. The story does not rush through the aftermath. It takes time to show how the impact settles, how it shapes the characters, how it changes the atmosphere. This approach makes the consequences feel more real, more lasting. The story has moved fully into the phase of consequence and reflection. The event that has been building throughout the narrative has occurred, and its impact is now unfolding in ways that cannot be contained or simplified. Oppenheimer stands at the center of this shift, carrying a deeper understanding of what has been done and what it means. The tension remains, but it has transformed into something quieter, more introspective, and far more difficult to resolve. The world does not pause after what has happened. It continues forward, steady and unchanged on the surface, but underneath, something feels different. The shift is not always visible, but it is present in the way conversations unfold, in the way people carry themselves, in the way certain topics are approached with more caution than before. The consequences are no longer distant or theoretical. They are part of the present, shaping the direction of everything that follows. Oppenheimer moves through this phase with a growing sense of detachment, not from reality itself, but from the version of reality he once understood. The clarity that guided him earlier begins to fragment, replaced by a more complex awareness that does not offer easy answers. He listens more than he speaks, observing the world around him with a focus that feels deeper, more reflective. His silence carries weight, suggesting thoughts that are difficult to express directly. The recognition he receives continues, but it does not land in the way others might expect. Public acknowledgement places him in a position of importance, but it also creates distance. He becomes a symbol, associated with something larger than himself. This role feels uncomfortable not because he rejects it outright, but because it does not fully align with how he sees the situation. The gap between perception and reality becomes more noticeable. There are conversations that attempt to define what has been achieved, to frame it in a way that feels understandable and controlled. These discussions often focus on outcomes, on strategy, on the broader implications from a structured perspective. Oppenheimer engages with them, but his responses carry a different tone. He does not reject the logic, but he sees beyond it, recognizing that some aspects cannot be fully explained or justified through reasoning alone. Kitty remains a steady presence, offering a perspective that cuts through abstraction. She does not engage in theoretical discussions about impact or strategy. Her focus stays grounded in the human side of what has happened. This contrast becomes more important as the narrative deepens. Where others may attempt to rationalize, she confronts the reality directly. Her interactions with Oppenheimer reflect both understanding and a quiet insistence on facing the truth without avoidance. As the story progresses, the environment shifts toward a more structured setting. The focus moves into spaces where decisions are examined, where actions are questioned, where the past is brought into the present for evaluation. These settings carry a different kind of tension. It is not the urgency of creation or execution. It is the pressure of scrutiny, of being observed, analyzed, and judged. Oppenheimer enters this phase with a composed exterior, but the shift is clear. The questions directed at him are not about what can be done, but about what has been done and what it means. This change alters the dynamic completely. He is no longer leading a project. He is responding to it, explaining it, defending it in ways that feel more constrained than before. The structure of these interactions creates a controlled environment where every word matters. There is little room for ambiguity. Statements are examined closely, intentions are questioned, and context becomes critical. This level of scrutiny adds a different kind of pressure, one that is less visible but deeply impactful. It forces Oppenheimer to navigate not just his own thoughts, but how those thoughts are presented and understood by others. General Grove's presence within this phase remains consistent with his earlier role. He approaches the situation with clarity and confidence, focused on outcomes and decisions. His perspective does not shift significantly, even as the tone of the narrative becomes more reflective. This consistency creates a contrast with Oppenheimer, whose internal state continues to evolve. The interactions within these structured settings reveal more about Oppenheimer's character than any previous phase. His responses are measured, but they carry depth. He does not avoid difficult questions, but he does not simplify his answers either. There is a sense that he is trying to remain honest while also navigating the limitations of the situation. This balance adds complexity, making his position feel both strong and vulnerable at the same time. The tone during this part becomes more introspective, but it does not lose its tension. The pressure comes from understanding, from confronting the reality of what has happened and how it is perceived. This creates a steady, underlying intensity that carries through each interaction. Kitty's role continues to provide grounding, even within this more formal environment. Her perspective remains direct, offering a contrast to the structured nature of the discussions. She does not engage in the same way as others, and that difference adds depth to the narrative. It reminds the viewer that beyond the formal examination, there is a personal reality that cannot be ignored. Oppenheimer's internal conflict reaches a level where it feels fully integrated into his character. It is no longer something that appears in brief moments. It is constant, shaping how he thinks, how he responds, how he carries himself. This transformation marks a significant point in his journey, showing how deeply the events have affected him. As this continues, the sense of resolution remains distant. The questions being asked do not lead to clear answers. Instead, they reveal more complexity, more layers that make the situation harder to define. This approach keeps the narrative grounded, avoiding simple conclusions in favor of a more realistic exploration of consequence. The story has fully transitioned into a space of reflection and evaluation. The focus is no longer on what has been achieved, but on what it means and how it is understood. Oppenheimer stands within this space, navigating a reality that feels more complicated than ever. The tension remains, but it has evolved into something quieter, more internal, and far more difficult to resolve. The deeper Oppenheimer moves into this phase of scrutiny, the more the narrative begins to feel like a careful unraveling. It is no longer about a single event or decision. It becomes about patterns, about how moments from the past are pulled forward and examined under a different light. The environment around him feels controlled, almost restrained, but the tension within it continues to grow. Every question carries intent, and every answer seems to open another layer rather than close one. The structure of these proceedings creates a rhythm that feels precise and unyielding. There is little room for spontaneity. Everything follows a process, and that process shapes how the story unfolds. Oppenheimer sits within this system, responding, explaining, sometimes clarifying, but always aware that he is not fully in control of how his words will be interpreted. This awareness adds a subtle pressure that runs through every interaction. His past begins to take on a different kind of importance. Relationships, conversations, affiliations that once felt like part of a broader life are now examined with a focused intensity. Context shifts. What once seemed ordinary is now viewed through a lens that searches for meaning, for intent, for anything that might explain or question his position. This reframing creates a sense of instability, where even familiar memories feel altered. Oppenheimer handles this with a composed demeanor, but the strain is visible in small ways. His responses remain thoughtful, but there is a growing sense that he is navigating more than just the questions being asked. He is also dealing with how those questions reshape the narrative of his own life. This adds depth to his character, showing how external scrutiny can influence internal understanding. The people leading these examinations maintain a tone that feels controlled and deliberate. They do not raise their voices or push aggressively. Instead, they rely on precision, on carefully structured questions that guide the conversation in specific directions. This approach creates a different kind of tension, one that builds through implication rather than confrontation. Lewis Strauss becomes a more prominent presence in this phase, and his role introduces a distinct energy into the narrative. His perspective is shaped by a combination of personal judgment and strategic thinking. He does not approach Oppenheimer with open hostility, but there is a clear sense of opposition in the way he frames his concerns. His interactions carry an undercurrent that suggests more than what is openly stated. This dynamic between Strauss and Oppenheimer adds a new layer to the story. It is not a direct conflict filled with dramatic exchanges. It is something quieter, more calculated. The tension exists in the way questions are asked, in the way responses are interpreted, in the subtle shifts in tone that reveal underlying intentions. This makes their interactions feel complex and layered. As the proceedings continue, the narrative begins to move between past and present more fluidly. Moments from earlier in Oppenheimer's life are revisited, not as simple recollections, but as pieces of a larger puzzle. These transitions are handled in a way that feels seamless, allowing the story to connect different phases without breaking its flow. Each return to the past adds context, but also raises new questions. Kitty's presence remains significant even as the focus stays on these formal settings. She does not engage with the process in the same way, but her perspective continues to influence how Oppenheimer navigates it. Her understanding of the situation is direct, unfiltered, and that clarity provides a counterbalance to the controlled nature of the proceedings. The emotional tone during this part becomes more restrained, but not less intense. The tension is carried through pauses, through the weight of words, through the way silence is used between exchanges. This approach keeps the narrative grounded, allowing the complexity of the situation to unfold without relying on overt dramatization. Oppenheimer's internal conflict continues to evolve within this environment. It is no longer just about what has happened or what it means. It becomes about how those events are interpreted, how they are judged, and how that judgment shapes his present reality. This adds a new dimension to his character, one that focuses on identity as much as consequence. General Groves appears within this phase as well, offering a perspective that contrasts with the direction of the proceedings. His view remains aligned with the original purpose of the project, focused on outcomes and decisions made under pressure. His presence serves as a reminder of the context in which those decisions were made, adding another layer to the narrative. The interplay between different perspectives becomes one of the defining elements of this section. There is no single version of events that dominates. Instead, the story presents multiple angles, allowing the audience to see how interpretation shapes understanding. This complexity keeps the tension alive, as it becomes clear that resolution is not simply a matter of facts, but of perception. As the process moves forward, the sense of control that once defined Oppenheimer's role feels increasingly distant. He is no longer directing or leading. He is responding, adapting, navigating a system that operates on its own terms. This shift highlights the contrast between his earlier position and his current one, emphasizing how much has changed. The narrative feels deeply immersed in examination and interpretation. The events that once drove the story forward are now being revisited, questioned, and reframed. Oppenheimer stands within this process, carrying the weight of both his actions and the way they are being understood. The tension remains steady, shaped by uncertainty and the complexity of judgment, with no clear resolution in sight. As the proceedings move closer to their conclusion, the tension does not ease. It sharpens. What began as a process of questioning now feels like a narrowing path, where each step leads toward a decision that will define how Oppenheimer is seen, not just in the present, but moving forward. The atmosphere remains controlled, but there is a growing sense that everything is reaching a point where it can no longer remain unresolved. Oppenheimer continues to respond with composure, but the weight of the situation is more visible now. His words remain measured, but they carry a deeper sense of reflection. It is no longer just about explaining past actions. It is about confronting how those actions are being interpreted and what that interpretation means for his identity. This shift adds a final layer to his character, one that feels both grounded and deeply complex. The questions directed at him become more pointed, focusing less on broad context and more on specific decisions, specific moments. This change creates a tighter dynamic, where there is less room to navigate through nuance. Each answer feels like it must carry clarity, even when the reality behind it is far more complicated. This tension between simplicity and complexity becomes one of the defining elements of this phase. Strauss's influence becomes more apparent as the process unfolds. His approach remains controlled, but the direction of the proceedings reflects a clear intent. It is not expressed through direct confrontation, but through the structure of the questions, the framing of concerns, and the way certain details are emphasized over others. This creates a sense that the outcome is being shaped as much by perspective as by fact. Oppenheimer senses this, even if he does not openly challenge it. His responses begin to carry a subtle resistance, not through defiance, but through the way he maintains his perspective. He does not adjust his answers to fit expectations. Instead, he continues to present his understanding of events as they are, even when it places him in a difficult position. This consistency adds strength to his character, showing a refusal to simplify what cannot be simplified. Kitty's role becomes more pronounced as the process nears its end. Her presence is not passive. She engages with the situation in a way that brings clarity and force. Where Oppenheimer remains measured, she is more direct, more willing to confront the tone and direction of what is happening. This contrast adds energy to the narrative, providing moments where the controlled environment is challenged by a more grounded, emotional perspective. The broader context of the story continues to expand alongside these proceedings. The impact of Oppenheimer's work, the decisions that followed, and the world that has emerged from those decisions all remain present, even if they are not the direct focus of each moment. This layered approach keeps the narrative connected to its larger themes, ensuring that the examination does not feel isolated from its consequences. General Groves appears again within this phase, offering a perspective that reinforces the context of the original decisions. His presence reminds the audience of the urgency and pressure that defined the earlier parts of the story. This contrast between past urgency and present scrutiny adds depth, showing how the same events can be understood differently depending on perspective. As the process moves toward a final decision, the tension becomes more internal than external. There are no dramatic confrontations or sudden shifts. Instead, the intensity comes from the understanding that everything being said, everything being examined, is leading to an outcome that cannot be undone. This creates a quiet pressure that runs through every scene. Oppenheimer's internal state reaches a point of clarity, not in the sense of having answers, but in understanding the complexity of his position. He does not resolve the conflict within himself. Instead, he acknowledges it, carries it, and continues forward despite it. This acceptance becomes one of the most important aspects of his character in this final phase. The decision, when it arrives, does not feel like a dramatic conclusion. It feels measured, almost restrained, reflecting the tone that has defined the proceedings. Its impact, however, is significant. It shapes Oppenheimer's future, his position, and the way he is perceived. The weight of it is not in how it is delivered, but in what it represents. The aftermath of this decision unfolds quietly. There is no immediate resolution, no clear sense of closure. Instead, there is a continuation, a movement forward that carries the consequences of what has been decided. Oppenheimer's reaction reflects this. He does not respond with visible emotion. His response is internal, expressed through the way he carries himself, through the quiet understanding that this moment is part of a larger, ongoing story. Kitty remains by his side, her presence steady and grounded. Their connection, shaped by everything that has happened, feels stronger in its simplicity. There is no need for elaborate expression. The understanding between them exists in a way that does not require explanation. As the narrative moves toward its final moments, the focus shifts from events to reflection. The story does not attempt to provide a clean resolution. Instead, it allows the complexity to remain. It acknowledges that the impact of what has happened extends beyond the boundaries of the story itself, into a broader reality that continues to evolve. The closing moments center on Oppenheimer's perspective, bringing the journey back to where it began, inside his mind. The thoughts that once drove him forward now return in a different form, shaped by experience, by consequence, by the understanding that some questions do not have clear answers. This return creates a sense of continuity, linking the beginning of the story to its end in a way that feels complete, even without resolution. This film stands out because it does not rely on spectacle to create impact. It builds tension through character, through dialogue, through the slow unfolding of complex ideas. The performances carry the weight of the story, with Cillian Murphy delivering a portrayal that feels deeply internal and consistently engaging. The direction maintains a steady control, allowing the narrative to develop without unnecessary distraction. As a review, this film succeeds in delivering a layered experience that goes beyond simple storytelling. It challenges the viewer to engage with its themes, to think about its implications, and to reflect on its characters long after it ends. It is not designed to provide easy answers, and that choice strengthens its impact. Overall, Oppenheimer earns a strong 9 out of 10. It delivers a focused, intense, and thought-provoking experience that remains consistent in tone and execution from start to finish. If you enjoy films that combine character depth with real-world impact, this is one worth watching and reflecting on. Even after the formal decision has been delivered and the immediate phase of scrutiny comes to a close, the story does not feel finished. In many ways, It opens into a quieter, more reflective space where the impact of everything begins to settle in a deeper way. The absence of structured questioning does not bring relief. Instead, it creates room for thought, and that space feels heavier than the pressure that came before. Without constant interrogation, Oppenheimer is left alone with his own understanding, and that becomes its own kind of weight. His daily life continues, but it does not feel the same. The routines are familiar, yet the meaning behind them has shifted. Simple interactions carry a different tone. Conversations feel more measured, as if every word now exists within a larger context. There is a sense that he is moving forward physically, but mentally, he remains connected to everything that has already happened. This creates a quiet tension that stays present in even the most ordinary moments. What stands out during this phase is how the film allows silence to take a stronger role. There are fewer intense exchanges, fewer structured confrontations. Instead, there are pauses, moments where nothing is said, yet everything feels understood. Oppenheimer's expressions carry more weight than dialogue. His presence alone communicates the depth of what he is processing. This shift in storytelling style reinforces the internal nature of this stage. The world around him continues to evolve, and with it, the perception of his role begins to shift as well. Public recognition does not disappear, but it becomes more complicated. He is no longer seen in a single light. Different groups interpret his actions in different ways, creating a fragmented image of who he is. This external division mirrors the internal complexity he is experiencing, adding another layer to the narrative. Oppenheimer does not attempt to control this perception. There is no effort to reshape his image or defend it aggressively. Instead, he seems to accept that how he is seen is no longer entirely within his influence. This acceptance does not feel passive. It feels like an acknowledgement of reality, a recognition that some things move beyond individual control once they reach a certain scale. Kitty remains an essential presence during this phase, but her role evolves in a subtle way. She becomes less reactive and more observant, offering stability rather than confrontation. Her understanding of Oppenheimer feels complete, not because she has all the answers, but because she does not expect them. This quiet acceptance adds emotional depth, showing a relationship that has adapted to the weight of everything that has occurred. The broader themes of responsibility and consequence become more pronounced, but they are no longer presented through direct events. Instead, they exist in the background of every scene, shaping the tone without needing to be stated. The story trusts the viewer to carry these ideas forward, to feel their presence without being reminded constantly. This approach makes the experience feel more immersive and more lasting. Oppenheimer's internal reflection deepens during this time. He begins to revisit earlier moments in his mind, not as memories to hold on to, but as pieces of a larger understanding. Decisions that once felt clear now appear more layered. Conversations that seemed straightforward now carry additional meaning. This process of re-examination adds complexity, showing how perspective changes over time. There is also a noticeable shift in how he engages with others. He speaks less, but when he does, his words feel more deliberate. There is no urgency in his tone. Instead, there is a calm that comes from having already faced the most intense parts of his journey. This calm does not remove the tension. It transforms it into something more internal, something that does not need to be expressed outwardly to be felt. The absence of structured conflict in this part might seem like a reduction in intensity, but it actually creates a different kind of engagement. The focus moves entirely onto character and thought. The story becomes less about what is happening and more about what it means. This shift requires attention, but it rewards it by offering a deeper level of connection. The film also uses this phase to reinforce its central idea that actions do not end when they are completed. They continue, shaping future moments, influencing perspectives, creating outcomes that extend far beyond their origin. This idea is not presented through direct explanation. It is embedded in the way the story unfolds, in the way Oppenheimer carries himself, in the way the world around him responds. There are moments where he appears almost at peace, but that peace feels complex. It is not the result of resolution. It is the result of acceptance. He understands that not everything can be resolved, that some questions will remain unanswered. This understanding becomes a form of stability, allowing him to move forward without needing to fully reconcile every aspect of his experience. The pacing during this remains steady, but it feels more open. There is no immediate destination driving the narrative forward. Instead, the story allows itself to exist in this reflective space, giving time for the weight of everything to be fully felt. This choice strengthens the overall impact, making the conclusion of the story feel earned rather than rushed. The narrative has moved into a space that feels almost timeless. It is no longer tied to specific events or decisions. It exists within the ongoing process of understanding and reflection. Oppenheimer stands within this space, not as someone who has found answers, but as someone who has learned to carry the questions. This extension of the story adds depth to the overall experience, showing that the true impact of what has happened cannot be contained within a single conclusion. It continues, shaping thoughts, perspectives, and understanding long after the major events have passed. As time moves forward, the story settles into a phase where distance begins to shape understanding. Events that once felt immediate now exist slightly further away, not forgotten, but viewed through a different lens. This distance does not reduce their impact. Instead, it changes how they are processed. What once demanded action now invites reflection. The urgency fades, but the weight remains. Oppenheimer carries this shift in a quiet way. His presence feels steadier, less reactive, but not lighter. There is a sense that he has absorbed the intensity of everything that came before and is now learning how to exist with it. This is not a transformation that happens suddenly. It unfolds gradually through small changes in behavior, in tone, in the way he engages with the world around him. The external world continues to evolve, and with it, the narrative around his role becomes more complex. Discussions about his contributions take on different tones depending on perspective. Some view him as essential to a moment that changed history. Others focus on the consequences that followed. These differing viewpoints create a layered perception that feels unstable, never fully settling into a single definition. Oppenheimer does not actively participate in shaping these narratives. He does not attempt to clarify or correct them in a direct way. Instead, he remains somewhat removed, allowing them to exist without intervention. This distance is not indifference. It feels more like an acknowledgement that the story has grown beyond any one person's control. His interactions with others reflect this change. Conversations are less about explanation and more about presence. He listens carefully, responding with thought rather than urgency. There is a calmness in the way he communicates, but it carries depth. Each word feels considered, shaped by experience rather than impulse. This creates a sense of maturity that defines this phase of his character. Kitty continues to stand as a steady point within this evolving landscape. Her understanding of Oppenheimer feels grounded in reality rather than perception. She does not engage with the shifting narratives around him. Her focus remains on the person, not the image. This consistency adds a sense of stability to the story, anchoring it in something that does not change as easily as public opinion. The film uses this phase to explore how time influences meaning. Events that once seemed clear begin to reveal new layers when viewed from a distance. Decisions are reconsidered, not in terms of right or wrong, but in terms of impact. This approach avoids simple judgment, instead focusing on the complexity of cause and effect. Oppenheimer's internal reflection continues, but it evolves in tone. Earlier, it carried tension and uncertainty. Now, it feels more measured, more contemplative. He does not search for answers with the same intensity. Instead, he observes, considers, and accepts the limits of what can be understood. This shift adds depth, showing a progression that feels natural and earned. There are moments where he appears fully present, engaged in the world around him without visible conflict. These moments are important because they show that his experience has not removed his ability to exist within everyday life. At the same time, there is always an underlying awareness, a sense that what he carries is never entirely absent. It exists quietly, shaping his perspective even in ordinary situations. The narrative also highlights how others interact with him during this phase. Some approach him with respect, others with curiosity, and a few with a sense of distance. These interactions reflect the varied ways people interpret his role. They add texture to the story, showing that his presence continues to influence the environment around him in subtle ways. General Grove's influence fades from the immediate narrative, but his earlier role remains part of the context that shapes how events are understood. The contrast between action and reflection becomes more apparent as the story moves further away from the moments of urgency that define the project. This contrast reinforces the idea that understanding often comes after action, not during it. The pacing during this part feels more open, allowing scenes to breathe. There is less pressure driving each moment forward, but the engagement remains strong because of the depth of thought being explored. The story trusts the viewer to remain connected without relying on constant movement or escalation. Oppenheimer's journey in this phase becomes less about external events and more about internal alignment. He is not seeking resolution in the traditional sense. Instead, he is finding a way to exist with complexity, to carry it without being overwhelmed by it. This approach feels honest, avoiding the need for a simplified conclusion. There is a quiet strength in this portrayal. It does not come from certainty or control, but from acceptance. The ability to move forward without having all the answers becomes a defining trait. This adds a layer of realism that resonates beyond the immediate story. As this comes to a close, the narrative feels settled but not finished. It has reached a point where the intensity has transformed rather than disappeared. The questions remain, but they no longer demand immediate answers. They exist as part of a larger understanding, one that continues to evolve over time. Oppenheimer stands within this space with a presence that feels complete in its complexity. He is not defined by a single moment or decision. He is shaped by all of them, and by the way he continues to carry their impact. This continuation keeps the story alive, even as it moves further from the events that first set it in motion. As more time passes, the narrative reaches a stage where reflection begins to merge with legacy. What once felt immediate and personal now starts to take on a broader meaning, extending beyond Oppenheimer himself. His role becomes part of a larger conversation, one that continues to evolve as new perspectives emerge. This shift does not reduce his importance. It places it within a wider context, where individual experience connects with collective understanding. Oppenheimer exists within this changing landscape with a quiet awareness. He no longer tries to define what his work means. Instead, he observes how others interpret it, how it is discussed, how it is remembered. This observation is not passive. It carries a depth that comes from knowing that meaning is not fixed. It changes depending on who is looking and from where they are looking. The public perception of his legacy continues to shift. Some view him through the lens of scientific achievement, focusing on the breakthrough and its place in history. Others approach it through the consequences, questioning the cost and the impact. These perspectives do not cancel each other out. They exist together, creating a layered understanding that feels both complete and unresolved at the same time. Oppenheimer's response to this evolving legacy remains consistent with the path he has been on. He does not attempt to simplify it or guide it toward a single conclusion. Instead, he allows it to remain complex. This choice reflects a deeper understanding, one that recognizes that certain events cannot be reduced to clear categories. They carry contradictions, and those contradictions are part of their truth. Kitty continues to provide a steady presence, but her role now feels more reflective than reactive. She observes the way the world engages with Oppenheimer and understands the distance between public narrative and personal reality. Her connection to him remains grounded, unaffected by external interpretations. This constancy reinforces one of the core emotional elements of the story. The film uses this phase to explore how history is formed. It is not presented as a fixed record, but as something shaped by perspective, by time, by the way events are remembered and discussed. Oppenheimer becomes part of this process, not as someone who controls it, but as someone who is affected by it. This adds another layer to the narrative, expanding its scope beyond individual experience. There are moments where Oppenheimer engages in conversations that touch on these broader ideas. These discussions are not framed as debates or arguments. They feel more like exchanges of thought, where different perspectives are shared without the need for resolution. This approach keeps the tone consistent, allowing complexity to exist without forcing it into a clear outcome. His internal state continues to reflect a balance between understanding and uncertainty. He has reached a point where he no longer searches for a single answer. Instead, he accepts that multiple interpretations can exist at once. This acceptance does not remove the weight of what has happened. It changes how that weight is carried, making it part of an ongoing process rather than a fixed burden. The pacing remains deliberate, giving space for these ideas to develop naturally. The story does not rush toward a conclusion. It allows each moment to contribute to a broader sense of understanding. This approach reinforces the idea that the impact of what has happened extends beyond any single point in time. Oppenheimer's presence in this phase feels more settled, but not resolved. There is a quiet confidence in the way he carries himself, not because he has found answers, but because he has learned to live without needing them. This distinction becomes one of the most important aspects of his character, showing growth without simplifying the complexity of his journey. The world around him continues to move forward, and with it, new challenges, new discussions, new perspectives emerge. His story becomes one part of a larger narrative, connected to ongoing developments that extend beyond his direct influence. This expansion adds depth, showing that the consequences of his work are not confined to a single moment or generation. General Groves and others who were part of the earlier phases of the story now exist more as figures within this larger context. Their roles remain important, but they are no longer central to the immediate narrative. This shift reflects the passage of time and the way focus moves from individuals to broader themes. The emotional tone during this feels balanced between reflection and continuation. There is no sense of finality, but there is a sense of understanding. The story acknowledges its complexity without trying to resolve it completely. This approach keeps the narrative grounded, allowing it to feel realistic rather than forced. Oppenheimer's journey in this phase becomes less about events and more about meaning. He exists within a space where the past, present, and future connect, shaping how he sees the world and how the world sees him. This connection adds depth, making his character feel fully realized. As this comes to an end, the story feels expanded rather than concluded. It has moved beyond the immediate events into a broader exploration of impact and legacy. Oppenheimer stands within this space as a figure shaped by his experiences, carrying them forward in a way that feels both personal and universal. At this, the story reaches a point where everything begins to feel interconnected. The past is no longer separate from the present, and the present is no longer isolated from what will come next. Each decision, each moment, each thought forms a chain that continues to extend outward. This realization does not arrive as a sudden insight. It builds gradually, becoming clearer as Oppenheimer reflects on how everything fits together. His understanding of his own journey deepens in a way that feels quiet but significant. He no longer looks at events individually. Instead, he sees them as part of a larger pattern. The early ambition, the intellectual drive, the choices made under pressure, and the consequences that followed all begin to align into a single narrative. This perspective does not simplify anything. It makes the complexity more visible, but also more cohesive. Oppenheimer's presence during this phase carries a sense of stillness. It is not the stillness of inactivity. It is the stillness of someone who has moved through intensity and now stands with a clearer awareness of what it meant. His movements, his speech, even his silence reflect this shift. There is no need for urgency anymore. What has been done cannot be undone, and what remains is understanding. The world around him continues to interpret his role in different ways, but these interpretations begin to feel less central to his experience. Earlier, they carried weight, influencing how he saw himself. Now, they exist more as external reflections rather than defining forces. This change shows a level of internal grounding that was not present before. Kitty remains a constant presence, but her role now feels fully integrated into this quieter phase of the story. She does not challenge or question in the same way as before. Instead, she shares in the understanding that has developed over time. Their connection feels stable, shaped by everything they have experienced together. It does not need to be explained or emphasized. It simply exists. The narrative uses this phase to explore the idea that understanding does not always lead to resolution. Sometimes, it leads to acceptance of complexity. Oppenheimer reaches a point where he no longer tries to reconcile every contradiction. He recognizes that certain aspects of his journey will remain difficult, and he allows that difficulty to exist without forcing it into clarity. There are moments where he reflects on the broader implications of what has been set in motion. These reflections are not framed as conclusions. They feel more like observations, pieces of thought that connect to something larger than himself. This approach keeps the story open, allowing it to extend beyond the boundaries of a single narrative. The pacing continues to support this reflective tone. Scenes unfold without urgency, giving space for thought and presence. This creates a sense of calm, but it is not empty. It is filled with meaning, shaped by everything that has come before. The lack of external conflict does not reduce engagement. It shifts it inward, making the experience more introspective. Oppenheimer's internal state reaches a form of balance during this phase. Not balance in the sense of resolution, but in the sense of coexistence. The pride in achievement, the awareness of consequence, the questions that remain unanswered, all exist together without one overpowering the others. This balance feels realistic, reflecting the complexity of real experience. The film also reinforces the idea that legacy is not something that can be controlled or finalized. It continues to evolve as time passes, as new perspectives emerge, as the world changes. Oppenheimer becomes part of this ongoing process, not as someone who defines it, but as someone who is included within it. This perspective adds depth, showing that the story extends beyond individual intention. There is a quiet confidence in how he carries himself now. It does not come from certainty or from having resolved every question. It comes from having faced those questions and continuing forward despite them. This quality adds a sense of completion to his character, even as the story itself remains open. The relationships around him reflect this shift as well. Interactions feel more natural, less influenced by tension or expectation. There is an ease in the way conversations unfold, but that ease is built on understanding rather than simplicity. It shows how experience can reshape not just individuals, but the way they connect with others. As this approaches its end, the narrative feels fully expanded. It has moved beyond the original events into a space where meaning, memory, and legacy all intersect. Oppenheimer stands within this space with a presence that feels complete, not because everything has been resolved, but because everything has been acknowledged. The story no longer pushes toward an outcome. It rests within its own complexity, allowing the audience to engage with it in a way that feels personal. This approach strengthens its impact, making it linger beyond its final moments. Oppenheimer's journey at this point feels less like a story with a beginning and end, and more like an ongoing reflection. It continues to exist, to evolve, to influence, long after the central events have passed. This continuation becomes the final layer of the narrative, giving it a sense of depth that remains even as the story moves toward its closing phase.